How's it going, YouTube? I'm Tomlin Sheary, and this is Chocolate Avenue Baking Company. Now, as some of you may or may not know or care about, I'm getting ready to open a small artisan bakery here in Chocolatetown, USA, otherwise known as Hershey, Pennsylvania. Now, of course, one of the first things that you have to do when you're getting ready to open a new bakery is you have to have some unique, excellent quality recipes and products that people will come back to again and again and again. So in our last episode, I came up with an awesome chocolate chip cookie, and I'm figuring I probably should have, seeing as I'm right here on Chocolate Avenue in Hershey, I probably should have a really excellent quality brownie too. And now I like fudgy brownies, so I'm going to have to ask you to keep this under wraps. Please don't be sharing this with people. But see, the thing is, with all these preparations that I have to have, and all the plans I'm making and everything, I don't have that much time for baking. Baking is time consuming. So what I decided to do to get a nice fudgy brownie is I'm just going to use these Little Debbie's walnut brownies, fudge brownies with English walnuts. And I grew up with these things. These things are really tasty and delicious. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to arrange these on a platter, for the bakery display. And these things are so cute. You can see the little walnut crystals on top. And of course I'll take the wrapper off so nobody suspects anything. And you gotta figure they're probably pretty high quality, probably like ingredients that fresh from the farm, right? What the hell is TBHQ? Red 40? Crap. Is everything a lie? So obviously, if I want good brownies for my bakery, I'm going to have to make them myself, as always. Now, I tried out a lot of the different recipes and formulas here on YouTube and also in various different baking texts. I tried combining a bunch of formulas and tried to get consistent results to get the right fudgy texture and the right flavors together. And it was surprisingly challenging to come up with good, something that I can count on, a formula that's going to be consistent and that bakes up really nice. So now I do think that I came up with something here and that I'm going to try, and it did produce fairly good results in my tests. So let's try it again. We'll go through this together and see how it comes out. Now, there's a lot of ingredients here. It looks like a lot because there's a glaze that goes on top of this, an old-fashioned chocolate fudge glaze. And as always, the recipe is going to be down in the description, but if you prefer, you can pause right here and and write everything down, and then it's going to help you to get everything kind of laid out, scaled, and measured properly. So we'll go through everything over in the test kitchen. Okay, so here we are in the test kitchen, and as you can see, I've kind of scaled everything out here. We're going to go through everything as we as we put this together, and if you're following along at home, you may want to check the recipe and the ingredients list and kind of scale everything out to the weights and measurements that I have in there. And again, as I said in before my last episode, eventually I'll have everything in the 3 measurements of volume, ounces, and then the grams as well, because really with the metric system with grams, it is much more precise, so it's easier when you're weighing things out to get a more precise measurement. But okay, so we're going to go through this here, and I'm going to show you the ingredients first. What I'm doing here is we've got 5 ounces of Lindt bittersweet. This is 70%. It's nice, shiny, nice chocolate. Has excellent, very excellent flavor. So that's kind of the backbone of the chocolate. And then I also I'm using a 95%. It's supposed to be a 100%. But this just came in a slightly larger package, so I needed 2 ounces of that. So that's what I have here, and that's this. I'll show a close-up of these chocolates, so you can see how dark this 95% is. It's a nice European chocolate, and the 70%. So with this chocolate, I also have 8 ounces of unsalted Kerry Gold butter. So we're just going to put this into the bowl here. And again, this is really high quality butter. And I truly believe with this type of butter, you get a better, I think it gives all baked goods really a better flavor. So we're going to just melt these. 70% and the 95%. I'm going to melt all that together. So we're just going to melt this until it's smooth. And then we'll come back and we'll get to the next step here. Just make sure that you put this over very barely warm water. You're not trying to bring this to a high temperature. You're just trying to melt it out and get it nice and smooth. So this will take a second here, and then we're going to come right back. Okay, so once this is smooth and glossy, should have nice glossy smooth look to it. Just kind of like set it to the side to cool down a little bit. So what we're going to do here now is I'm going to melt out this brown sugar. I have a cup and a quarter of organic brown sugar. So we're going to just put that in here. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is it's a little, the organic brown sugar is a little bit gritty. It's a little bit more of a rustic texture. So I like to just make sure that gets worked into the batter and everything's nice and smooth. So then we have 3 organic eggs. These are pasture raised eggs, and I'm going to separate them, put these into the bowl here, not separating them. Just make sure you're not going to get any shells in there. So we have 3, and as always, room temperature. should be a given for anyone who's familiar with baking here. So you really want to make sure that you're not cooking your eggs, so you're going to want to you're going to want to make sure that your heat is not on high. So I'm going to start this. Just kind of melt out this sugar here. Get everything nice and smooth and melted. So you have to be very careful. You're not trying to scramble your eggs, obviously. Now, to this mixture, I'm going to add a full tablespoon of this organic vanilla here. And again, this process is just for melting out the sugar crystals, basically, to make sure everything is nice and smooth. So we're going to put the tablespoon in there of the vanilla, and whisking. Now, also to that, we are going to put in a half teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt. And also, what was this? Yes, 3 tablespoons of cocoa. And this is Dutch processed cocoa. Very dark and chocolatey, very nice, robust chocolate flavor. So, to make sure that's sifted into that, and you should be able to start to feel the sugar and everything kind of like come together. That's probably really all you need to get that melted out. And you're just going to try to combine this for about 30 seconds. Really just make sure it's all smooth and it's come together kind of glossy. I'm going to show you what this looks like here. So as you can see, it's nice and glossy, starting to come together, melt out all that sugar so that the batter goes together nice and smooth. That's really what you're trying to accomplish here. Okay, so now as you can see here, what I have is, once we have the chocolate nice and melted out and glossy, what you're going to do is, then over here we have the eggs and brown sugar, vanilla, salt, and cocoa, all nicely combined and glossy. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to take our chocolates and butter and just combine it here in this other mixing bowl. Try to get all that chocolate out of there. Don't want to be wasting good quality European chocolate. So then, what we're going to do is we're just going to take the whip and combine it. So once that's combined, take the whip out of there. Try not to waste any of your batter. So then once that's out of the way, what we're going to do now is simply sift in 1 cup of organic all-purpose flour. Just make sure there's no lumps in there. And then just fold. That's really all there is to it. Get a nice smooth batter. You're not trying to overmix this. You're just going to mix the flour in until it's nice and folded in there. So it thickens up nice, and that's really all you need to do there with that. So now, just to up the chocolate explosion of these Chocolate Avenue brownies, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put some of these Nestle Toll House semi-sweet chunks, and I have 7 ounces here. So we're just going to fold those in like that. And that's really all there is to it. Okay, so then once your batter comes together nice and glossy like that and everything's together, you're going to want to get this into the pan right away and into the oven. So what I did first is I lined a 8x8 baking dish. That's what I'm using here. And I'm very old-fashioned, so I like using the traditional method, you know, the unsalted butter and dusting of flour just so nothing sticks. And I'm putting it on a, because this is kind of a cheaper tin. I don't have a good one right now, but I'm going to put it on a half sheet, on a cookie sheet here, and then we're just going to put this nice beautiful batter right into that pan. Oh my God, wish you could smell this stuff. How can that not be delicious? So you're just going to do the best you can just to scrape that out. And you're really not going to want to use any smaller of a pan for this. 8x8 is kind of the smallest you would want to use for this. You probably could stretch this into like a rectangular. If you didn't have an 8x8, you could probably stretch this into like a 7x11, like rectangular cake pan or something like that too, if you were pressed. So then we're not wasting any of that. And of course make a mess accordingly, because it is very sticky. So now I'm just going to use, to get this in, like, spread out in the corner there, I'm just going to use a little back of a soup spoon here. Just kind of spread that into all the corners. Try to get a nice even layer. So just get that into all the corners there. nice and try to give it a little bit of character there, maybe some swirls. This really is a beautiful batter. I think if you try this recipe, you'll be really happy with this. You'll see how it comes out here in a little while. Now, when I made these before, I put them center of the oven. Now, I'm using a convection oven, so I turned mine down to 325. If you're just using a straight oven, you can just use 350, but this is forced hot air. Now, one thing you might want to consider doing is kind of tapping that a little bit, just to make sure, try to get it in there evenly. And that's basically what it looks like. So we're going to now put that into the oven. Okay, so our brownies are in the oven, and we're going to give this about 25 or 30 minutes until a skewer comes out of the very center, kind of with a few little moist crumbs on it. You don't want to over bake it, obviously. You want it nice, moist, and fudgy texture. So last time I did it, it came out after about 25 to 30 minutes, give or take. But we'll check it and be back in a little bit. Okay, so just like that, 32 minutes has gone by. It took a little longer than I thought it would, but it's nice and firmed up now. It's got a nice crackly crust, and as you can see, there's a little bit of fudgy crumbs there happening inside, but that's the way we like it here at Chocolate Avenue Bakery. So now we're just going to go ahead and let this chill on the counter for a couple of hours down to room temperature, and then we're going to put an old-fashioned chocolate glaze on it. And I had to look around for this old-fashioned type of recipe. I knew exactly what kind of glaze I wanted for this, but I could not find a formula for it, so I had to do a little more digging, and I came up with something. So we're going to check that out in a couple of hours here. It'll just be a second for you, but a couple hours for me. Okay, so it's the next day, and I had something that I had to do yesterday, so unfortunately I wasn't able to finish up yesterday, but I've had our brownie sitting on the counter overnight and nicely wrapped airtight. But before we can unmold these and glaze them, we have to take care of a couple of tasks here. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh out and toast up just a little bit of walnut here, and then kind of turn them into granulated walnuts. And the reason why I'm doing that is this is going to be a very intensely chocolate rich decadent dessert, and I like having a little bit of contrast with it. This is just basically for a little tiny bit of crunch on top of the glaze. I'm not going to kill it with walnuts, and there's no nuts inside. But I'm thinking for an 8x8 pan, you're probably going to want something like, I don't know, 3 to 4 ounces of walnuts. So that's 4 ounces. I'll probably, let's go 3.5. There we go, that's enough. 3.5, something like that. So we're just going to put these walnuts here in a dry pan and throw them in the oven here for 325 or so. Make sure you set a timer. I'm sure if you're a baker then you probably burned some nuts before. So always make sure that you check on them and you set a timer. Okay, so then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our glaze. And we're going to have to weigh out some things. First I'm going to go over how we're going to do this glaze, and then I'll bring you over on this side so you can kind of see what's going on over here. But we'll weigh things out here and at least get the glaze started. So what I have here is, again, just a hot water bath, just steaming. It's not boiling or anything like that. It's just kind of steam coming up. So you want to keep your hot plate, your oven, however you're heating it, at a very low temperature. So what we're going to do first here is we are going to weigh out 2 1/4 ounces of light corn syrup. So that's the first step. So there's 2 1/4 ounces light corn syrup. And then we're going to add to that 1.25 ounces of unsalted butter. Kerry Gold, again, my favorite. So that would be about 3. Okay, so that's 1.25 ounces of unsalted butter. And we're just going to kind of let that warm up and do its thing there on the water. And now the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a generous tablespoon of this cocoa powder. This is Dutch processed. It's a brand called Rodelle. It's a very nice, it's a nice cocoa. So I'm going to, that's what I would say, about a generous, maybe a little less than that, generous tablespoon of cocoa powder. And then what I have here is I just made some French press coffee, real strong, still kind of warm. It's not really hot, but what you're going to want to do with that is you just want to have enough of the coffee in here to sort of melt this out. So you're not trying to turn it into a cup of cocoa. You're just kind of like creating a little bit of a paste here, and I'll show you what that looks like. So just maybe like that much, just enough to kind of melt the cocoa. I guess it's not really quite a paste. You're just kind of like melting the cocoa out there. And just so it plays well with the glaze and it's not gritty or anything, getting all the lumps out. And what that's going to do is you're not really going to taste the coffee per se. It's just sort of there to intensify the chocolate flavor. So you just get that together. So once the cocoa and the butter and the corn syrup all combine, I'm just going to put about I have a little bit of this organic vanilla extract. I'm just going to put a little drop in there. Yeah, it might have been like about a quarter teaspoon just for some extra depth to the flavor. And then lastly, what I'm doing here is I'm going to add 2 ounces of the 70% bittersweet chocolate, and I'm going to use 2 ounces of the 55% milk chocolate. This is a dark, robust milk chocolate. Adds incredible flavor. It has its own unique flavor. I love this chocolate. It's 55%. It's amazing. So we're just going to weigh out 2 ounces there. So total, what we have here is, again, 2 ounces of the 70% and 2 ounces of the 55% Lindt. Obviously, you can use whatever chocolates you want, but you just want to melt that out, and then once everything comes together, we'll let it cool down and it'll thicken while it cools down. So at this point, I think we can pull our nuts out here of the oven, and it's nice and toasty, nice golden brown. And I'm just going to whiz them in here for a minute. It's really hard to get the right texture of like a granulated nut in a food processor, but it's fast and it's less messy. So I probably won't use all of that anyway, so I'll just try to pick out the nice granulated pieces. And just pulse it till it gets a nice crumb on it. Those are warm. Okay, so that's good. You don't want to really like pulverize it much more than that. And you just let them cool down, because you don't want to have, put hot nuts on top of the cool glaze and then remelts everything. So just let those cool. And now this has melted out, so pretty well. So I'm going to bring you over here so you can see what that looks like. So yeah, it's a very nice shiny glaze. So once you get everything incorporated there, come together very nicely, it's important to let this glaze cool down for a little while. It'll really start to thicken up as it sits, so you just now we'll take it off the heat and just let it cool down. Okay, so now's the time we're going to unmold this thing and glaze it. So first, just going to get all this wrap off of here. Have enough wrap on here to wrap an entire car or something, but okay, let's get all that out of the way. And I'm going to pick this bad boy up here. It should come out nice and easily. And I think what we're going to do is probably turn this thing over to get a nice smooth top. And now before I glaze this, it wouldn't be fair of me to do that all the way over here, so I'm going to bring you over here in action so you can see what all this looks like. Okay, so now you can see that our glaze has thickened quite a bit. It's not quite cold yet. It will start to set up, but basically it's a situation where you're going to want to put about the right amount on there. You may not want it all. Depends on how much glaze you want on there. I could go thicker, but we'll see. I have a little more here. So you maybe cut back on your glaze a little bit, but basically just going to take a little offset spatula here. And you're just trying to get it smooth, mostly. Play around with it, get a nice home style look. When you're done, and then last but not least, just going to take some of these walnuts here. Strategically place them. Not too many. And there you go. Now I'm going to cut these brownies on the small side just because they're so incredibly rich and dense. You're not going to want a big huge piece. I mean, maybe you will. I might eat more than one piece, but what I'm going to do is just kind of go right down the center here. And then cut it again. As long as you keep your knife nice and hot, it's no problem. You'll get through these. Just clean it. One more slice. Okay, now we're gonna bring you over here so you can see how the texture is on these. Okay, so here we go. You can see it's nice, very dense, fudgy. Those chunks of chocolate in there, that incredible, beautiful glaze. So that is what they look like. And these are, again, I did slice these really small, but as you can see, I mean, that's just like a little slice of absolute chocolate heaven. Now here's something we hope you'll really like. So, the moment we've all been waiting for. I am now going to get to try this delicious chocolate treat. And let me see here. Looking for the Chocolate Avenue Brownie. I think we're going to go ahead and just take this little one. I'll be good for now, but later. Beautiful fudgy texture. The glaze. There's nothing really left to do, but oh my God. Wow. And this really has achieved the absolute ultimate fudgy depth of chocolate flavor. The the chunks inside and the walnut, the roasted walnut on top. It's just hard to describe. I really hope you'll try this out at home. It really is. I'm telling you, if you try these, you're gonna love these. So anyway, thank you for joining me again. And could you do me a favor really quick? Could you hit the dishes before you're done? Wait a minute, where are you going? I made you brownies.
Oh, man.